TaxAct can think of a million things more fun than filing taxes. TaxAct is going to name some now. Sitting in traffic. Folding a fitted bedsheet. Listening to your coworker talk about his fantasy team. Digging a hole. Digging an even larger hole next to that original hole. Unfortunately, TaxAct's filing software can't make taxes fun. But TaxAct can help you get them done. TaxAct. Let's get them over with.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Excuse me. Taxi.
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
My dear friend Randy Grimes spent a long time in the National Football League, and he suffered from pain addiction, pills, and went to rehab, started Athletes in Recovery. He was on Fox News on Saturday. He's here right now. Randy, it is so great to talk to you, my friend. You look great and sounded great on Fox News Saturday. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. And it was great to hear from you, too, man. It's been a long time.
And as I ran out of Florida 10 years ago, came back to New York City and took over this city, Randy, took it over. And it's been a great, great run and a great 10 years. But there are still people I miss down there. And, of course, you're one of them. You're a guy that really had it rough. You played about a decade with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the National Football League. And if I'm saying something wrong, correct me. But what I know about you is, especially the last 2 years of your career, you ought to stay medicated just to stay on the field. And I think I read, or you said it to me, that you were taking upwards of 45 painkillers a day. Is that accurate?
Oh, yeah. That is accurate. Yeah, and one of the things that I talk about, Sid, is, I basically played the last 2 years of my career in a blackout. I was taking so much medication before games and practices and all that, I would be home late at night after a road game and kind of come to and be all beat up and fingernails all torn up and dehydrated, everything you are after an NFL football game. And I didn't remember playing any of it. And I was playing every down as a starting center.
Wow. You remember none of it. I've heard Troy Aikman and Steve Young talk about that when they were concussed. They wouldn't remember. But for you, this was the painkillers, and it was every week. Not to get anybody else in trouble, but did your coaches, did your teammates, did they know? Was some of them doing the same thing?
Nobody. And this was going on for about 6 years of my career, maybe 7. Not once did anybody ever say, "Randy, why are you slurring your words?" or "Why are you nodding off in meetings?" or "Why are you late to practice every day?" Nobody ever asked me those questions because I was always playing good. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Well, listen, I love Lawrence Taylor, so he would show up late if he showed up at all, and he'd be asleep because he did so much cocaine 2 nights before. So I know the LT stories here in New York, it was cocaine, not painkillers, but nevertheless, drug addiction is drug addiction. You went through it, and now you've got this really special group. I don't know how many athletes are involved and who they are, but it's called Athletes in Recovery. Tell us a bit about that, Randy.
Well, when I came into treatment in September of 2009, there was nothing out there for former players. Nobody was addressing what, the underlying trauma was. And we all know that trauma, our addiction's rooted in trauma. But nobody was dealing with what I call transitional trauma, and that's not having that identity anymore, that uniform, that playbook. And, of course, the substances are an issue, but also there's that reason why we use those substances afterwards. And, it's chronic pain. The injuries just keep getting worse. The pain keeps getting worse. But it's also that deep-seated trauma of not having that uniform anymore. And it's not just athletes, it's veterans, it's first responders. It's a lot of people who identify with whatever occupation they've always done. So I started an organization. I went to the NFL. We started the Player Care Foundation. As soon as I started going out sharing my story around the country, hands started going up everywhere because I knew that there was a lot of guys that I'd played with and against that were struggling just like I was, and even guys on my own team. And hands started, it's that pride and ego, guilt, shame, that keeps these former professional athletes from raising their hand and asking for help. Sometimes that telephone weighs 800 pounds,
Yeah, I know. My friend Bobby Hartman, I hope he's listening, does a great job all the way out on Long Island. I mean, all the way, almost in the Hamptons. He's got Mainstream House, and I go to his golf tournament every year. In fact, it's coming up in June this year. I'll be there again. I've been out there with Darryl Strawberry. I've been out there with Thomas Hollywood Henderson. He does an amazing job. But I heard you talk about this yesterday. You know, you talk about how when you leave the field at the end of the game and you win, that euphoric feeling. Or how Tiger felt when he walked off the 18 at the Masters the first time he won that by over 20 strokes. And you can never replace that in your life. But many of the people that I spoke to over my years, they say that a lot of these issues started way before Randy Grimes put on a Tampa Bay Buccaneer uniform, way before Tiger Woods won the Masters. That's the easy way to look at it. Hey, all the cheering is gone. Nobody loves me anymore. But in most cases, Randy, and we can't even pinpoint what the hell it is, for a lot of us, it started way before.
Yeah, and Sid, I always tell myself I was that guy willing to do whatever I had to stay out on the field because, this shouldn't have happened to me. I didn't have any childhood trauma. I had a great high school, college career. This started as a way for me to stay out on the field because, I can remember sitting next to Leroy Selman. I had a locker next to him.
What a great player. Yep.
And and he taught me a lot about being a man on and off the field. But he also, one of the things that I learned from Leroy was you do whatever you have to stay out on that field because if you're not out there in your position, somebody else was going to be. And I'm sure he didn't mean throwing down handfuls of opiates every day and then handfuls of benzos at night to sleep. But that was what I was willing to do. And I justified it so easy. I looked at it like a necessary evil. I justified it because I wanted that next big contract. I wanted to be all pro. I wanted to play the game forever. Hell, I wanted to feed my family. Those were ways. Right. Those were the excuses I used to keep using all that. And I said this on Saturday, when Coach Sam, I played 10 years and I played for 5 different head coaches. We were a revolving door of coaches, players, front office people. It was ridiculous what that decade was in Tampa. But I remember Sam Weish putting his hand on my shoulder and walking by and not even really slowing down and looking me in the eye, but telling me, hey, we won't be needing you here in Tampa anymore. And I'd gotten hurt halfway through that year, so I couldn't go try out for anybody else. And I remember just raking everything out of my locker into a black trash bag and walking out the back door. And Randy Grimes, the football player, didn't exist anymore. And that was throwing gasoline on an already raging dumpster fire that was my addiction. And I really lost control when I retired from the game.
How many years after that did you finally get the help and turn your life around?
It was about another 16.
Oh, my God.
I would go to detoxes. I would go for some short stays in rehabs, but I never really got it. And it wasn't until September of 2009 that I finally put up my hand and said, I surrender.
Good for you. 17 years.
Whatever I need to do.
Yeah, 17 years. I actually became very close with Sam Weish. And you folks may remember Sam Weish was the coach of the Cincinnati Bengals. He coached Boomer Esiason to that Super Bowl, which they lost in the last couple of seconds when Joe Montana hit John Taylor with a late touchdown for the 49ers. But early in my career, I did a television show, believe it or not, for CBS with my old partner, Scott Kaplan, and it was an NFL show. It was called Playbook. We did it once a week from Turnberry down in Florida, and we had 2 former coaches sit with us. They happened to be Sam Weish and Marv Levy. But your story is one of redemption, and now you become an inspiration, Randy Grimes, and the question is, how does Tiger become that guy? Because from what I saw on Saturday, another car flipped over, that glazed look across his eyes. Clearly, he wasn't drunk. He blew a 0, but he refused to take the urine test because he would have failed that because of whatever painkillers and medication he was on. How does Tiger Woods become the next Randy Grimes?
And I heard this morning that the president has even told him not to be driving his granddaughter.
That is true. That's true. That's correct. I mean, Vanessa's very upset. The president's daughter-in-law is angry and upset. Donald Trump Jr.'s former wife, she's been with Tiger for a year, and the president said, do not put my beautiful granddaughter, who's a golf star right now at Miami, in that car until you fix yourself. That's a true story.
I understand. I would tell Tiger, first thing you need to do is get some professional counseling, whether inpatient or outpatient, preferably inpatient because it's a safer environment and more thorough. I tell him to get a sober companion, sober coach. I would tell him to start going to meetings, whether in person or virtual. I would tell him to look for all the new advancements in pain management that are non-narcotic. And, I would tell him, get himself in a program, stay accountable to somebody, whether it's family, friends, he's surrounded by all his buddies up there on Jupiter Island. Stay accountable to those guys and fix this thing, man, because it's been going on for a while. I remember in 2017, his incident there on Military Trail there in Jupiter.
Yep.
So I mean, this goes back a ways, and something else I was thinking about when I was seeing all this weekend was how many times did he make that drive successfully but impaired back to his house from wherever he was, this it just so happened this Saturday or whenever Friday he didn't make it home. So, but how many times did he do that before then? And just by the grace of God, nobody got hurt.
I'm sure many.